Good afternoon. The meeting will now come to order. I'm Steve Whistler, President of the Board of Education, and I'd like to welcome you to the April 15th, 2026 board meeting. In keeping with the board's commitment to open communication with the community, this meeting is being streamed live on the CCPS website at www.carrollk12.org and broadcast live on Channel 21. We're also recording this meeting so that it can be accessed on demand on our website and broadcast throughout the month on Channel 21. Public participation will be held at approximately 5:15 p.m. following the reports section on the board meeting agenda. Speakers will be directed into the boardroom from the building lobby and are allotted 3 minutes to address the board. As a reminder, please silence all cell phones and other devices. Board members, please turn off your microphones when you are not speaking. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
So moved by Dr. Dorsey.
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Malvo. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now may I have a motion to approve our minutes of March 11th, 2026?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia. May I have a second? Second by Ms. Zimmer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we'll hear from our Carroll County Student Government Report.
Good evening. Good evening, board members and Dr. McCabe. My name is Peony Kang, a current junior at Liberty High School and the Vice President of the Carroll County Student Government Association. This past month, CCSJA has continued preparing for upcoming state and county programming. Most recently, our county's high schoolers voted for their student representative on the Board of Education-elect, Brooklyn Ellis. She will shadow Gabriella Tedeschi next year and then serve her term for the 2027-2028 school year. Congratulations. On March 31st, we hosted an executive board meeting to finalize the agenda for the April General Assembly, which will be hosted on April 22nd at Winters Mill High School from 9 to 1. We look forward to strong attendance and meaningful discussions, as well as the voting for our 2026-2027 term officers, which includes our president, vice president, secretary, and second vice president. Applications for open staff positions will be released shortly after the April General Assembly and is open for all students across the county. That is middle schoolers and high schoolers. We encourage all interested and motivated students to apply and participate in these vital roles. Application packets and more information will be sent out to SJ advisors at the end of the month. Some members of our executive board will also attend the Maryland Associate of Student Council's MASC executive board meeting on May 16th, representing Carroll County on the state stage. This will be hosted at Eastern Technical High School from 10 to 3. Students may register themselves, which can be found on the MASC website. Finally, staff applications for MASC are open and will close tonight, April 15th. Any students seeking more leadership experience are encouraged to apply, and more information can be found on the MASC website. The Carroll County Student Government Association remains committed to supporting student voice, leadership growth, and building a strong community across the county. We look forward to a successful General Assembly next week and continued collaboration throughout the rest of the year. Thank you all so much for your time today, and have a great evening, and God bless.
Thank you so much. Now we're going to move to our board member and superintendent updates. If I can first call on our student member of the board.
Hi. Honestly, I'm just restating a lot of the stuff that Ms. Peony King said, but I would like to start off by congratulating Brooklyn Ellis on being elected as the student representative on the board for the 2027 to 2028 school year. I am so proud and excited to see the impact that she will make. And then, once again, like Ms. Peony King said, CCSJ held its executive board meeting at Central Office where we finalized plans for the upcoming General Assembly next Wednesday from 9 to 1. CCSJ will hold its executive board elections for the positions of president, vice president, second vice president, and secretary. I also hope everyone had a wonderful spring break as we transition into AP exam season. I want to wish the best of luck to all of our students preparing for and taking their exams. Additionally, I would like to wish good luck to our Skills USA students from the Career and Technology Education Center who will be competing at the state level this Friday and Saturday. I'm excited to attend and support them, and I look forward to seeing all they accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, may I please call on Dr. Malvo?
All right, thank you. I have a good deal to report, but as I go into that, first I want to say that this past week we learned of the unexpected passing of a student from my son's middle school, Shiloh Middle. I'd like to express my sincere condolences to her family, and I pray for them as they grieve. May this further unite us as a community as we work to support our students. So I would like to share with you in terms of my report, something that I'm working on, I'm proposing and working with staff to bring what I feel is a more inclusive approach to CCPS schools and give our schools a greater opportunity to support the diverse needs of all our students. I hope for us to have uniform offerings and availability of sensory-friendly orientations in all Carroll County public middle and high schools. Sensory-friendly open houses or orientations are designed to bring a welcoming, calm environment for individuals with sensory processing challenges. They would serve to support neurodivergent individuals and their caregivers, but may also be considered for any student who wants to experience school orientation with less crowds, noise, and distraction. At present, there are only a few schools, so kudos to Westminster High, East Middle, and Shiloh Middle that consistently offer sensory-friendly open houses and orientations. Too many parents are unaware of the possibility of sensory-friendly orientations because of this, and parents don't have to coordinate with administrators to make special arrangements for their children if this should go through. Instead, the open houses should be made readily available to support, again, diverse needs of all students, and in particular, all the students who are transitioning from elementary into middle school and middle school into high school. I encourage our schools to maintain these spaces even after orientation if possible. Research shows such spaces lead to improvement in student behavior, attention, and educational outcomes. Look for more details on this initiative in the future. So to give you more in terms of my activities, first let me tell you that it is National Teacher Appreciation Week, and we will be observing this May 4th through 8th and Tuesday, May the 5th. It's National Teachers Day. And during this time, we'll celebrate our extraordinary educators who work tirelessly throughout the year to help our students to learn, grow, and fulfill their potential. We are truly fortunate to have such dedicated teachers who go above and beyond every day to meet the needs and our students and provide high-quality instruction. Thanks to our teachers for all that you do for our students. Also this week is Administrative Professionals Week. April 19th through 25th, and Wednesday, April 22nd, is Administrative Professionals Day. Thanks to our clerical secretaries and administrative assistants both in schools here and at central office. These dedicated and caring employees are essential to the daily operation of our schools and offices. They assist our students, staff, and public in countless ways and play a vital role in their schools and in our school system. All right, so on March the 18th, I attended the Outstanding Teachers Awards ceremony, which took place at Winters Mill High School. This was an excellent opportunity to see a turnout of over 700 guests present, and congratulations to the 8 teachers named for the Outstanding Teacher Award, who will then become nominees for Carroll County Teacher of the Year. Also extremely gratifying was just seeing the recognition of hundreds of our teachers who embody excellence in the teaching field. On March 19th, I joined the Special Education Citizens Advisory Committee, or CCAC. I appreciated the group's input on various issues, including the need for countywide sensory-friendly opportunities for students transitioning from one school to the next. On March 21st, I attended the Read Across Maryland event hosted by CEA and CASE, held at the Carroll County Career and Technology Center. This enriching event provided free books, breakfast, games, and activities to children. On March 26, I listened in on the Blueprint AIB virtual meeting. National Board Certification Salary Enhancement for Teachers in Low-Performing Schools and Blueprint Progress were among items considered. On March the 7th, I thoroughly enjoyed taking part in a banquet to honor the Manchester Valley High School women's varsity basketball team. It was such fun to hear the shared stories and see the featured images that unified this team for this unforgettable season. And team members even let me ramble on about my old glory days as a starting point guard for my varsity basketball team. Well done, Coach Heather Deweese and her amazing staff. And again, congratulations to the players who are our state champions. Speaking of champions, on April the 8th, I had the pleasure of seeing over 100 elementary, middle, and high school students with disabilities participate in challenges for the 35th Annual Tournament of Champions at McDaniel College. It was a great opportunity to gather with so many students and teachers. Thank you for the experience. That is my report for the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. Ms. Battaglia.
April 24th through 30th is National Student Leadership Week. This annual recognition highlights the important role that student leaders play in our schools and in the community. We are fortunate to have a very strong and active student government association that gives students an opportunity to voice their opinions and develop their leadership skills. The board would like to thank Jasmine Masvio and our student representative, and Mr. Mason Dean, president of the Carroll County Student Government Association, for their outstanding leadership and the excellent job that they do representing our students. Public School Volunteer Week will be celebrated during the week of April 20th through the 24th. From tutoring and mentoring to chaperoning field trips and assisting in the classroom, volunteers play a crucial role in supporting the success of students and teachers. We very much appreciate the efforts of these dedicated individuals who do so much to support our schools, our students, and our staff. And with that, my Board of Ed activities, I actually did a write-up regarding volunteerism that we have here in the county. April is known for many important awarenesses and preventions, and I want to acknowledge all the volunteers as April is known as National Volunteer Month. Per Google, National Volunteer Month recognizes the impact of volunteers and encourages services. Before the Easter break, my youngest daughter and I put together over 200 eggs to donate to the Find Your Purpose Community Egg Hunt. In March, we volunteered for a local nonprofit that held a purse bingo to raise money for bullying awareness. In July and August, we will be volunteering at the Carroll County 4-H Fair. I want to thank all the parents that volunteer at their local school, whether it's in the PTO, the PTA, Fine Arts Boosters, and Sports Boosters. All the parents that assist in the various classrooms and all the school activities. Thank you. CCPS in Carroll County has always had volunteers in our communities, from fire departments to cleaning roads to youth mentors. Volunteers give their time to assist and help make our communities thrive. So thank you to everyone that gives their time. Thank you to our volunteers.
Thank you, Ms. Battaglia. Now, Ms. Zimmer.
April is National School Library Media Month. Our media specialists teach students how to locate and use information through traditional resources and new technologies and instill the love of reading for a lifetime. Thanks to those dedicated employees who make our school media centers a welcoming place for students to learn and have fun. On Wednesday, March 18th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce's Outstanding Teacher Awards. Congratulations to all the teachers who were nominated, and a special congratulations to all the finalists. On Saturday, March 21st, I attended Read Across Maryland at the Career and Technology Center. Thank you to CCEA and CASE for organizing the event, and thank you for the books that my 8-year-old daughter was able to bring home with her. I am very grateful. On Wednesday, April 8th, I attended the 35th Annual Tournament of Champions at McDaniel College. Congratulations to all the participants. And finally, yesterday was the Chamber of Commerce's Leadership Carroll Education Day, which I had the privilege of helping plan as part of their committee. The 2026 cohort of business owners, government personnel, and nonprofit employees had the opportunity to see many of the educational opportunities that Carroll County has to offer. The Career and Technology Center hosted breakfast for the class, prepared by students in the baking and pastry program, while attendees heard from Dr. McCabe about the school system and the modern-day classroom. I can attest that breakfast was fantastic. No surprise there. Later in the day, the class attended a panel discussion with leadership from McDaniel College and Carroll Community College, where our very own Mr. Mason Dean represented Carroll County Public Schools as a career and tech student, as well as a dually enrolled student. Mr. Dean fielded questions and spoke on topics including programs that have made a difference in his learning experience, opportunities available to students such as internships, job shadowing, and mentorships, and how his educational path will shape the next 3 to 5 years. Mr. Dean's ability to interact, communicate, and speak publicly to a room full of adults was truly impressive. And it's a shame that he's not here tonight because he's getting all these accolades. Dr. McCabe, I apologize, I'm going to share. I told her earlier today, because the group heard from her as well, that unfortunately it was Mr. Dean who really stole the spotlight. He knocked everyone's socks off. He was very impressive. And overall, the day provided a meaningful opportunity to showcase the strength of Carroll County Public Schools and the wide range of opportunities available to our students and members of the local business community. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Dorsey.
I will begin with National Assistant Principals Week. Last week was National Assistant Principals Week. Our assistant principals work hard, making sure that our schools run safely and effectively. Our students excel academically and socially, and our teachers grow professionally. They also encourage our families and community members to become involved and stay engaged in the education of our students. Thanks to all our assistant principals for their outstanding work and leadership. On March 16th, I attended a legislative meeting. Bill updates were provided during that time. On the 17th, I co-chaired the Conference Program Committee meeting. Our main discussions were on brainstorming keynote speakers and session topics for this year's conference. On March 18th, I also had the privilege of attending the Outstanding Teacher Reception and Awards sponsored by the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce and a number of other businesses and parent-teacher organizations. It was certainly an honor to shake hands and congratulate all the great teachers who were nominated. Congratulations and best wishes to the 8 finalists. On March 20th, I attended an Equity Council meeting, which focused on plans for an upcoming regional meeting with the equity liaisons. The equity plan and rubric were discussed and revised. Thanks to Dr. Moore for facilitating the meeting and to members of the staff and community for participating. On March 30th, I attended another legislative committee meeting, and again, it focused on priority bills. March 31st, I attended a power visit and $1 million big check presentation by Senator Chris Van Hollen, Congressman Johnny O, and a representative of Senator Angela Alsobrooks at the Youth Services Bureau. This was one of 3 presentations that day by our federal leaders. Congratulations also to McDaniel College and Carroll Community College for also receiving federal dollars. On April 8th, I also attended the Tournament of Champions at McDaniel College, and this is always a very heartwarming event where our students with special needs partner with McDaniel student athletes to participate in various athletic activities. Many thanks to William Vandergrift, Supervisor of Phys Ed and Health, Rob Vaughn, Linda Kephart, the McDaniel College athletes, and our special ed staff for continuing to support this meaningful program. April 9th, I attended session 1 of a virtual Maryland Board Leadership Academy which was provided for officers of local boards of education. During the informative session, President Whistler and I heard from a lot of folks, Dr. Michael, who's president of the State Board of Education, Dr. Leggett, chair of the Accountability and Implementation Board, Dr. William Kerwin, vice chair of the Accountability and Implementation Board, and Dr. Wright, State Superintendent of Schools. And we certainly also heard from each other as we were in breakout sessions. This was our first of 3 sessions, and this first session was focused on grounding governance in academic priorities while making sure that we're adhering to the role as board members without crossing the line into the management of the system, which is part of the superintendent's role. I look forward to the next 2 sessions that we will be having for this Leadership Academy. On April 10th, I reviewed materials that are being considered for recommended approval by the Curriculum Council. These materials will ultimately come to the board for action, and I certainly thank Mr. Wernick for being available with the materials, and I felt bad in one sense because he was here the whole time, almost the whole 3 hours, and there were just a couple of people in and out to look at the materials, but thanks for making them available. On April 11th, I attended the production of Guys and Dolls, which was presented by the Liberty Lions Pride Players. Congratulations and thanks to all designers, crew, cast, the director, staff, the community, and anyone who may have played a part in presenting this wonderful show. And finally, I'd like to end by highlighting achievements of Dr. Philip Benzel. Dr. Benzel was a longtime community member, dentist, and supporter of humanity. According to his published obituary, Dr. Benzel was a graduate of the University of Miami and the University of Maryland School of Dentistry. He served as a captain in the United States Air Force. He practiced dentistry in Westminster for more than 35 years, and some of you may have been associated with him in that way. And he was also a member of the Carroll County Board of Education for over 10 years and a member of the State of Maryland School Board for 8 years. So our condolences to Dr. Benzel's family, and thanks for sharing him with the community because he had a lot that he gave of himself. And again, I wanted to especially highlight this because of his service as a former board member. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. As for me, I'd like to talk about School Lunch Hero Day. School Lunch Hero Day will be observed on Friday, May the 1st. This day is an opportunity for parents, students, and school staff to thank our hardworking food service workers. We appreciate those dedicated employees who provide our students with healthy meals each and every day and make them feel welcome in our school cafeterias. I'd also like to talk about National School Nurse Day. Wednesday, May 6th, is National School Nurse Day. The professional nurses in our schools are dedicated to the safety, health, and academic success of every student. They play a significant role not only in healthcare at the schools, but they also help students meet challenges they face every day, supporting education and advancing student health. Thank you to all of our school nurses for being instrumental in our efforts to keep our students, staff, and community healthy and safe. As for my board report, on March 16th, I attended a Maryland Association of Boards of Education Legislative Committee meeting alongside my colleague, Dr. Dorsey. At the time, we discussed pending legislation and whether to support with amendments, or oppose education-related bills. On March 17th, I attended the Light of Carroll Awards ceremony in Hampstead. The county library system recognizes annually those in our community that make significant contributions to literacy. This year, 3 of our educators and a student received Light of Carroll Awards. Sarah Jarbo, a Spanish teacher at Westminster High, Taylor Boone, an ELA educator at North Carroll Middle, Ashley Brewer, a media specialist at Spring Garden, and Noah Brzezicki, an 8th grade student at North Carroll Middle, all received awards. We're so proud of all of you and the dozens of other Carroll County public school educators and students who were nominated. On March 18th, I had the pleasure of attending, alongside all of my colleagues, the annual Teacher Awards ceremony at Winters Mill High School. I want to thank our community and workforce for nominating, I think it was 1,089 educators to be recognized this year. Many thanks also to the Chamber of Commerce and our sponsors for always celebrating our educators. On March 22nd, I served as a judge again this year for the Maryland American Legion Oratorical Contest in Towson. Congratulations to Drew Veda, a Centennial High School senior in Howard County who will represent Maryland at the national level. I say this and mention he's from Howard County because I want to encourage our Carroll County public school students to get involved in this competition every year. I know Mr. Melhorn does a great job disseminating the information to our schools, and our school counselors also try to advertise the event with our students. And I encourage every one of our high school students to participate in this competition every year. There are thousands of dollars in scholarships awarded simply by giving a 5-minute speech on the Constitution. And those who participate at the national level can win $25,000, $22,500, and $20,000 for first, second, and third place, respectively. So it's a great way to show your patriotism, get involved, and to really earn some serious money for college. Again, this is anyone from 9th grade all the way up to senior. On April 9th, I attended the first of 3 Maryland Board Leadership Academy sessions alongside my colleague, Dr. Dorsey. As she mentioned, we heard from a number of political appointees to our State Board of Education and their goals on how to implement Blueprint going forward. I look forward to attending the next 2 sessions with you, Doctor. On April 11th, I attended the annual Christian Farmers Outreach Luncheon at the Pleasant Valley Fire Hall. I appreciated their invitation again to attend and the fellowship we experienced along many of the religious leaders of our region. And finally, I want to encourage folks, there are a lot of America 250 events happening throughout our region. Again, this is the 250th anniversary of our nation. Mr. Melhorn has done a terrific job in coordinating events all across our schools. There's also many events happening at our military installations nearby. I know at Fort Detrick and at Fort Meade. So definitely get involved in that. It's a great way to show our kids our patriotism and to talk about our history and our founding fathers. And then finally, I'd like to make a plug. On May 3rd, Carroll County is having its annual Veterans Appreciation Day at the Farm Museum from 12 noon to 4. So there will be static displays of military hardware. Come on out, meet our veterans, celebrate our veterans, and I hope to see everybody there. And that is all I have. Dr. McCabe.
Good evening. The Carroll County Chamber of Commerce Foundation recognized 830 teachers in the 37th Annual Outstanding Teacher Awards Program. The 2026 Carroll County Teacher of the Year will be chosen from among these 8 outstanding teachers. Congratulations to Natalie Bordner, Grade 1 teacher, Sandy Mount Elementary. Emily Brines, business teacher, Westminster High School. Cynthia Freed, kindergarten teacher, Ebb Valley Elementary. Christine Hanley, social studies teacher, South Carroll High. Todd Hartshorn, social studies teacher, Manchester Valley High. Nicole Hunsicker, teacher, Runnymede Elementary School. Sean Kelly, social studies teacher, East Middle School, and Angela McNamara, science teacher, West Middle School. The Teacher of the Year will be announced at our employee recognition ceremony coming up on April 30th. Congratulations to the 37 Carroll County Public School students who have received the prestigious honor of being named Carson Scholars. These scholars are awarded a $1,000 college scholarship, an Olympic-sized medal, and a certificate. In addition, 141 of our students renewed their status as Carson Scholars. These scholars were previously awarded and have continued to uphold the rigorous standards of being named Carson Scholars. Next, Levi Phelps, a South Carroll High School senior, enrolled in the Applied Mechanical Engineering program at the Carroll County Career and Technology Center, recently represented the Center and the National Skills USA program at the Association of Career and Technical Education's National Policy Seminars Advocacy Day. He was one of only 5 students nationwide to be selected to participate in the event. Congratulations, Levi. And congratulations to Mechanicsville and Sandy Mount Elementary Schools, which were recognized at the March State Board of Education meeting during the inaugural celebration of Emerging Science of Reading Schools. The schools were recognized for exceptional participation in the SUNY New Paltz Science of Reading micro-credential course, with more than 70% of staff completing the training and earning a 70% plus pass rate. Only 5 schools statewide reached this level of participation and performance. Congratulations as well to Ryan Melhorn, Supervisor of Secondary Social Studies, who was selected by the Maryland Council for Social Studies as the 2026 Social Studies Instructional Leader of the Year. This honor is awarded to a social studies supervisor, resource teacher, or instructional leader in a Maryland school system who has made outstanding contributions to curriculum and resource development, teacher professional development, or system-wide organization. I also would like to congratulate the school system's recipients of the Light of Carroll Awards presented by the Carroll County Public Library. And I think you've heard some of these names already, but we'll go through them quickly. Yes. These awards honor individuals, organizations, and businesses whose extraordinary kindness, courage, and innovative spirit have advanced literacy and learning throughout Carroll County. Taylor Boone, English Language Arts teacher at North Carroll Middle School, received the Basic Literacy Award. Noah Brzezicki, an 8th grade student at Shiloh Middle School, received the Student Award. Ashley Brewer, media specialist at Spring Garden Elementary School, received the School Librarian Award. And Sarah Jarbo, a Spanish teacher at Westminster High School, received the Cultural Literacy Award. I would now like to congratulate our student athletes and coaches for a very successful winter season. Century High School was the state 1A cheerleading champion, the first in school history, with head coach Jennifer Bottomiller. Liberty High School won individual and relay indoor track championships in the 4x800 relay and pole vault. The Manchester Valley High School girls basketball team brought home the 2A state championship, the first state championship in school history. In addition, a Manchester Valley student won an individual championship in wrestling. South Carroll High School won its 5th consecutive 1A dual wrestling championship with head coach Brian Hamper. South Carroll wrestlers also had 4 individual championships, including JoJo, and I hope I say this correctly, Gigliotti, the first wrestler in Carroll County history to win 4 individual wrestling championships. And Winters Mill High School brought home the state championship in the indoor track high jump event. And finally, I know lots of parents and students have been asking this question. I would like to announce that the last day of school for students will remain Friday, June 12th, as indicated in the school calendar. This will be a 2-hour, 45-minute early dismissal system-wide and the last duty day for teachers and instructional assistants. We used all 4 of the inclement weather days built into the calendar, but did not need any additional days. Therefore, there are no adjustments to the last day that are required. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Malvo. And I have to amend my comments, Andy, or Dr. McCabe, I'm sorry. I apologize, I'm all over the map today. I indicated that Noah Brzezicki was from North Carroll. She's from Shiloh Middle. I stand corrected, yeah. Definitely want to get the school correct. Next on our agenda are presentations. Section 3, pre-K through 12 local ELA assessment data. Dr. McCabe.
For our instructional presentation this afternoon, Mr. Wernick and his team of our elementary and secondary curriculum supervisors in ELA and math will share that proficiency data with you. They will address strengths, focus areas, and next steps. Mr. Wernick?
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. McCabe shared, we have our ELA and our math supervisors here, and we're presenting our local assessment data as well as our assessments and what they look like. And so I would first like to introduce our supervisors. Ms. Anne-Marie Bird, supervisor of elementary ELA, will be here tonight. Mr. Brian Weinholt, supervisor of secondary English. Ms. Marcy Myers, supervisor of elementary math, and Mr. Jared Milkey, supervisor of secondary math, will all be presenting along with myself. Let's see if I can get this to work. That's okay. We will advance to our objective in one moment. Wonderful, thank you. So as I shared this evening, we're going to present and review our local elementary and secondary ELA and math assessment results to examine student achievement trends, to identify some of our strengths, and also our areas for growth. And this is really to inform you, the public, and ourselves about our instructional improvement efforts that we continuously make as we review our data. And so at this time, I'd like to invite Mrs. Bird up here, who's going to begin sharing our elementary assessment results.
Thank you, Mr. Wernick. Good evening, board members and Dr. McCabe. I'm honored to share with you our assessments in the elementary ELA area. To begin, I will be sharing the primary literacy assessment, which is administered in pre-K through first grade components of it, as well as in kindergarten, first and second grade. We have our CCPA phonics assessment, which begins with letter sounds, letter ID, and goes all the way through to multisyllable words. We also have our Acadience reading screener, which keeps us in compliance with the Ready to Read Act. It is a strong indicator and predictor of any students who may have reading difficulties. And we also have our MAP growth assessment. This gives us normed information. It gives us a scaled score and percentile rankings and compares us with other students of the same age across the country. We also have our benchmark advance assessments, which we use in 2nd through 5th grade. These are our weekly assessments. We also have an interim assessment, which is the beginning of the year assessment, which gives us baseline data, as well as our end of year data, which measures the standards that teachers are focused on. We also have performance tasks, which measure writing in narrative, informational, and opinion writing. You can see as we continue to 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we have Acadience. In 3rd grade, we also have MAP growth and benchmark advance in 4th and 5th. Any students in grades 3 to 5 who are not making the necessary gains will continue using our phonics assessment until they've reached mastery. All of our assessment data is shared in multiple ways. We first share it with parents. It is shared with teachers. We share it through each one of our 3 assessment windows. At our ELA specialist meetings, ELA specialists analyze, we look at it, I look at it myself, and then provide direction in where we want to go next and how we want to adjust at the school level, how we want to adjust with our curriculum, and how we may adjust some of our assessments. We also look at the curriculum, and we look at how teachers and specialists can form those intervention groups. I also share this data with principals in my individual conversations at their school levels so that they know how they can move forward with specific areas to improve. I had an opportunity this winter to have our reading specialists and our principals meet to review our data, look at areas of success, and also look at next steps in areas systemically that we will continue to focus on. They had an opportunity at that meeting to look at all 3 tiers of instruction and plan their next steps from mid-year till the end of the year. The assessment data that you see here is a combination of our pre-K and kindergarten PLA letter ID, and sounds. Last winter, we were at 96%, and this winter, we are at 95.8. Those are strong scores, and we continue to look at our students in those areas and how we can continue to move forward and increase those scores through intervention and Tier 1 instruction. In K-3, we have our Acadience Composite Score. That's an average of 5 different subtests. And Acadience is really a measure of fluency. Fluency is the bridge from phonics to comprehension. These ages of these students are where we see students tend to struggle and where they're becoming to be more fluent readers. So these are somewhat typical for mid-year scores that we would see, but we have seen an increase from 66.4 to 67.4. One of the things that MSDE supported us with was organizing a group of supervisors, interventionists, and literacy folks to attend a summit multiple times throughout the year, focused on fluency and fluency practices. Our reading specialists then took their fluency data in areas where they were low, depending upon the different sub-assessments, and then they went in and modeled for teachers, worked with teachers on how they can improve their fluency instruction, and then stepped back and co-taught, and then created some protocols for teachers to implement in their classrooms to practice on a regular basis with students to grow in those areas. Our MAP growth data, which you see here, is our median achievement percentile. Again, this is our ranking across all schools. We did see a significant increase in this score. Our MAP growth folks tell us that we stand right in that middle range and tend to be on the higher end. We continue to move forward in this area with working on our writing and focused on our standards and helping teachers understand how to move forward with our new curriculum in instructing writing. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Mike.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for this data. And for folks at home that are watching this, Carroll County ranks second out of the 24 jurisdictions for ELA proficiency. So even though we're so high, I appreciate you not resting on your laurels and not doing much, but you're actually doing a lot to improve our instruction, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
And I'll introduce Mr. Weinholt, our secondary ELA supervisor.
I'm sorry I stood up a little early. I kind of look like a stalker there, but I didn't realize how much would go into this last slide, and we were trying to make it smooth. I'm here to talk to you about secondary ELA now. So basically, everything that we do in our local assessments is backward mapped from MCAP. And MCAP, since we are a skills-based content, looks at reading proficiency and looks at writing proficiency. So since that's what's tested in MCAP, you see how our local assessments are derived from that. So for reading at the middle school, we have 2 types of text that we focus on, which is consistent with MCAP, which would be literary text and informational text. From those assessments, we have a diagnostic reading assessment that we give each year to all middle schoolers in the fall. And then we have a summative reading assessment that we give in the spring. To measure writing, which is the other half of the component that's assessed with MCAP, we have moved toward a common writing assessment, which we implemented at the beginning of this year. So the current data that we have is for the first 3 quarters, since it's given quarterly. And the CWA4 is not complete yet. Some schools will be giving it immediately after MCAP. Some have given it before. I don't have the yearly data complete at this point. I will have it shortly. The common writing assessment really came out of the 4DX meetings, where teachers were meeting regularly to see how they could improve writing. And so we knew that we needed something besides just our summative writing assessment and our diagnostic writing assessment to give us information in real time to focus on improvement. And so those 4 writing assessments do that. Teachers set goals for improving students' abilities to write a claim based on a prompt, their ability to find effective evidence in the text to support that claim, what they say in response to that prompt, and then their commentary, which is really the hardest part of the writing for students, which is where they explain how their evidence supports the claim that they've made. So those 4 assessments were given this year, and the summative assessment for this year is optional for teachers if they would like to give that after MCAP. So if we look at data for reading, the summative reading assessment, and you're going to see a lot of acronyms because we love acronyms in education. So S will be summative, D will be diagnostic, and then the R or W will be reading or writing. So based on our summative reading assessment each year, we can see that in grade 6 we have some growth, grade 7 some growth, and grade 8 some growth. The thing to note is that even though we're performing at a fairly strong level, our data is relatively flat over a 3-year period. And the saying about data that I love but always bothers me is, your current system is perfectly designed to get the data that you're getting. So what this tells us is that we are in need of some innovative practices and changes that are going to boost us. So some of those will be coming next year in various ways that have been announced, and there's some that I'll talk about at the end of this presentation. But as Dr. Kendra Hart says a lot, you know, even if you see like an 85% score, there are still students who are not achieving. And so for us, that's never really something to kind of rest with. So for our summative writing assessment, you're going to basically see the same thing. There has been growth over the 3-year period. Again, the common writing assessments now have given information quarterly that's more actionable for teachers than simply waiting to see at the end of the year where we are. Our assessments are a lot shorter than MCAP. At middle school, we tend to be a little bit higher than our MCAP scores because the testing event is not as rigorous. Students take it with their teachers, and in general, they're more motivated and more comfortable when they take our local assessment. So we know when we look at our results to kind of adjust down when we think about what MCAP will be for that year. So at high school, we basically have the same thing. We begin with MCAP. Now at the top, I have MCAP 9 through 11, because even though our test is given in grade 10 and there is not a test in grade 9 nor grade 11, MCAP is a concern of those teachers as well. So our 9th grade year is really connected to those 10th grade results because both years are measured in that assessment, and our teachers view it that way. And then for grade 11, any students who haven't passed, we certainly look at what we can do to bring them up to a level where they will. So there are certain 11th grade classes that focus specifically on that as well. And again, reading and writing are tested. So for reading, as with middle, we have literary and informational text. Now our assessments here are really the summatives that we have at the end of each semester. So there are 2 that are given for reading and 2 that are given for writing during the course of a student's half-year full-time course. So the informational and the literary are for reading, and then for writing we have the informational and the literary. Now it's important to notice that for writing we also focus on argument writing versus explanatory writing. An argument has some qualities that students have to add to their writing in addition to explanatory. And here's some results over time for that. You see that in 9th grade, we're kind of flat based on our informational text for reading, according to those assessments. In 10th grade, the same. In our literary text, there has been some growth in 9th and 10th, but it relatively stays around the same level. Now, it's important to note that in high school, these assessments count for 10% of their final grade. I'm sorry, I keep knocking that. So that does pose a problem for us, and we tend to underscore where we are on MCAP. And I'll tell you what that issue is. A lot of our students are very savvy in terms of what their grade is, and they know when it comes to these summative assessments, they only need a certain percentage to maintain the grade that they desire. And so what teachers have reported and what we've seen as a trend is it kind of takes the edge off of our performance sometimes based on the way that's set up. So whereas in middle school we're a little higher than MCAP usually, predictability-wise, in high school we're a little bit lower based on our locals than we actually do on MCAP. So if you look at the writing, we have informational and literary again, and you're going to see that there's been a little bit of a drop in the fall, but again, the fall for this year is only this year's half-year results. We don't have the spring results added into that. So I'd say that even though that's 64% and we ended last year with 70, we're close to that probably by the time we test in the spring. And the same with our literary analysis. And so With these results, we are aware that we have been relatively stable, and even though that's been somewhat of a positive, we absolutely need some innovations. And do we go into those now? Or? All right. Mm-hmm.
So to capture our ELA and our reading next steps, it's really looking at our support for our teachers in a focused coaching model in their classroom. What does instruction truly look like for them? How can we enhance their instruction and enhance the resources that we have to ensure that our students are making progress? We also want to make sure that we're providing them with professional learning. You've heard about the SUNY courses, the reading courses, as well as the science of reading and writing integrated into the classroom. So really looking at professional learning to enhance our teachers' toolkits as they provide instruction. We also want to build our student stamina. As you heard, that our students are savvy, they know where their scores are, what they need to achieve, but we also want to make sure that they are aimed at focusing on MCAP, and that the stamina that may include when they're assessing longer periods of time. So we really want to look at their stamina and their resilience during close and analytical reading activities, both in the classroom and at assessment time. And then we'll continue to revise our middle school common writing assessments, and we look forward to developing more of our high school writing assessments as well, including close analytical reading activities, as well as making sure that our students are able to read those literary texts to ensure that they can gain the knowledge from them through comprehension. Our next part is really looking at our mathematics scores and assessments. Do we want to stop for questions on ELA, or will we want to keep going?
I think Ms. Zimmer may have a question about ELA.
Yes, just a quick question. Let me flip the slide. With the middle school assessment, the summative reading assessment, seventh grade seems to be doing 7 to 10% higher than 6th and 8th. What's happening in 7th grade that's so successful, and can we somehow expand it to 6th and 8th?
Sure, I have Mr. Weinhardt come
Thank
up
you.
and share that.
Well, it's interesting because the same trend occurs on MCAP. Our 7th grade MCAP scores are always our strongest, and they've been that way historically. So I would say a number of things. First of all, we absolutely see the same students who performed at a higher level in 7th grade have a drop-off in grade 8. And one of the things we can attribute that to is engagement in the classroom, right? As typically that 8th grade year, not to disparage any of our wonderful 8th graders, but having been one myself, I think I can attest to this a little bit. There's somewhat of a drop in motivation. So we are focusing on engaging students more in the classroom and helping them to understand the significance of the information they get from our local assessments and from MCAP. And a lot of that is having them look at their data. Why 7th grade is higher in general, beyond that, I would have to say it's somewhat of a mystery for us. Our assessments are evenly matched. They don't fluctuate in terms of the demands they put on students. But I will say another thing about any assessment program, and this goes all the way back to No Child Left Behind from its inception. When you have 3 years in a row that students are developing, like in middle school, that middle test is harder to develop. And what I mean by that is you have more of an idea what a top 6th grader can do and a struggling 6th grader and a top 8th grader and a struggling 8th grader, because they have more time for these fluencies for writing and reading to develop. When you put a test in the middle, sometimes it's harder to determine how much rigor should jump from grade 6 to 7. So I think that's also an issue because this pattern has been there for a long time. But again, our 7th grade teachers are amazing, as well as 8th and 6th. What did that? Okay.
Do you have a question?
I do actually.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's middle school. Sorry. So regarding the middle school reading and writing assessments, I saw that there's obviously the fall diagnostic reading assessments and then the summative reading assessments. How much do the scores differ between the both? Because with the scores being, I don't say low, but kind of low, I guess, for the summative reading assessments. Like, how big is the difference considering that these students know that the diagnostic reading assessment isn't part of their grade, if that makes sense?
Yes, well, our assessments at middle school are not directly part of their grade. Students know it impacts their grade. Students know that the feedback is relevant to them. I would say that in general with the diagnostic, we're trying to see, based on last year's summative, where students were, where they're entering. And it's not always a matter of that they're falling behind in their ability. It's that they've had a summer break and they're out of practice. By the summative, we're talking about the end of the year. And unfortunately, one of the things that happens, especially in grade 8, is before they get to our local summative, they've had multiple other state tests and exams. So there is some fatigue that plays into that. Now, we can't measure that, and we can't use that as a reason for our achievement. But if we're going to be realistic, we need to acknowledge that because of that, we do have some struggles. Reading is one of the most difficult areas to parse out at the secondary level what's going wrong and what needs to happen. Sometimes students respond to some texts. They're very engaged. They're very interested in that particular assessment text. Sometimes not. So what we have to do is we have to encourage students to persevere, and whether they are interested in the text that they're faced with or not, or they have prior knowledge about them or not, they have to engage and show what they can do. So that's an ongoing struggle, especially in middle school. And so that's kind of what goes into our analysis. Now, there will be some changes next year at different locations, I think, that will bring us opportunity to focus more on specifically differentiating by need. And I think we'll see some growth, absolutely, at that for those assessments and for MCAP. That was a really long answer. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. And then I had a question about the high schools. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't
Okay,
know why. I'm just not used to questions. It's okay.
No, I'm sorry. And then for the high schools, so like these reading literary assessments, for the reading and the writing, because the scores are in the 50s, 60s, and the 70s, because obviously, like you said, like students like to calculate how much they need to maintain their grade. What I guess, because I know, like me being an AP student, like we have like AP like practice exams like leading up to these like these AP exams that we have. Would it be beneficial for students to have like, I guess, like practice assessments before these assessments, so they're kind of like ready, or like they know what to expect kind of thing, or are these just like a measurement of what they can do?
So let me start and work backward from
Okay.
the end of your question. They are a measure of what they can do, but in this situation, they're kind of a measure of also what they have learned, because the questions that we have on these assessments are based on what was taught in class. When we look at other assessments, we're trying to give students 2 texts that they've probably never seen before, because we want to see in that situation what they can do when they're faced with something they don't know about. So that's the goal there. Here they have kind of an advantage because it is based on texts and questions and writers and things that they should have studied. So it's what they can do, and it should also be partly what they know at this point. Now, what you've said is interesting, because what we found for writing is that when we just looked at those 2 writing assessments, even though one occurs in the middle of the course and one at the end, they're slightly different and they're summative. And by the time you're at a summative assessment, you really don't have time to react and change. So we don't have practice assessments for next year, but what we are going to implement, and we'll be designing this in May and over the summer with the high school ILT, which is the instructional department chair at each high school, is we're going to have shorter writing assessments that occur. There will be 3 of them before the final for the year. Those will be focused on understanding text, but the writing will be shorter. Students will not have to produce an entire essay, because we found that if a student can give us a fairly solid paragraph, we can see in kind of embryonic form where their issues are with writing and what we need to focus on. So we will have 3 of those. One will occur right at the beginning of this semester, and then the other 2 will be spaced out during time, and we'll keep those results and look at them. Very similar to what we've done in middle. We don't have something like that for reading yet. We have other assessments that measure reading and give a lexile, and they're kind of short. But those assessments are divorced from any kind of writing or performing anything. So we kind of look at them as just an outside measure of how things are going in general. Was that?
Yeah, thank you. Because I actually, I didn't know that it was kind of like based on curriculum that you learned in class. So thanks for the clarification.
It's related to that for sure.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Dr. McCabe and members of the board. As we transition to mathematics, I'd like to go ahead and read our vision statement for pre-K students through 12th grade for all students to demonstrate mathematical confidence and proficiency through engaging, hands-on learning experiences. And as you read the mission to yourself, I'd like to highlight a few key points that we are committed to differentiated instruction based on assessment data, which we'll be going over this evening, and we are fostering a love of mathematics so that students can apply their knowledge to thrive in college, careers, and in their daily lives. In elementary math, we have different types of assessment to meet the various needs of our students as they're growing up in elementary school. You'll see the common grade level assessments. We have unit assessments that are formative and summative, and then we have our mid-year and end-of-the-year benchmark assessments. In kindergarten and pre-K, our benchmarks are individual student interviews and problem solving so the teachers can observe the students as they're working on the assessments. Then in first grade and second grade, we have more traditional paper and pencil benchmarks where the students solve the problems and show their works for the teachers to score and grade. And then our third, fourth, and fifth grade students take the benchmark assessments in Performance Matters online. They do have paper work mats to record their work as they're going along, and then the teachers are able to go back through the online scoring so that they can compare the work mat to the online work to give the student the benefit of the doubt if the correct answer is on the paper along the way. Our administrators and teachers use these unit assessments and benchmark assessments in their data meetings within the schools with their school improvement team meetings to monitor the school improvement plan so that they can plan for intervention, reteaching, extension activities, and monitor the learning of the standards along the way. For our benchmark assessments, you'll see last year's mid and end of the year assessment, and then this year's mid-year data for the percentage of students meeting or exceeding the expectation of 80%. The mid-year assessment includes the content that is taught from September through January, and our end of the year includes all of the content standards taught throughout the year. We closely review this data across the years and then also grade level to grade level, and we also monitor cohort or grades groups of students relative to their math learning of the content so that we can look at that. Our administrators review this data with their teachers, again, in the data meetings and their school improvement team meetings to monitor their school improvement plans using our mid-year and end-of-the-year assessment to write their goals that align to the content standards and the expectations. I have been able to meet with administrators to help analyze their data and provide additional support through either resources or additional professional learning for the teachers. We use this data to make curricular decisions for our units and our resources and professional learning that we provide each year. We align our assessments with the content standards. Anything that we learn about MCAP that's a public release item, especially in third, fourth, and fifth grade, we want to make sure that we're aligning those. We have reasoning and modeling tasks that align all the way down to pre-K, that we have our students participating in those higher level questionings from pre-K all the way through fifth grade so that they're seeing the rigor that's required of the standards as we go along. We also use this benchmark data to monitor our progress towards MCAP. And you can see that our end of the year data usually does go up a little bit in that, we have the beginning of the year assessed in January, and then with the rest of the year to teach and reteach, use the interventions and continue instruction. We usually see a bump and an alignment with our scores on the end of the year assessments with the MCAP data that we we get back. So thank you, and Mr. Milkey is going to go ahead and share our middle school and high school information.
Hi, good evening, everybody, board members and Dr. McCabe. I just want to thank you first for, slide that over there first, for the time to share about our local assessments, how we use them to monitor the high expectations that we have for our teaching and learning of the math curriculum that's aligned to the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. So first, I'd like to start by looking at our middle school math assessments. We have IXL, which is a diagnostic assessment tool. We have snapshots 3 times a year, the beginning, middle, and end. And the diagnostic is predominantly used over the past 4 school years to close learning gaps on prerequisite skills and progress monitoring for interventions and also acceleration. We have common unit assessments. Those are one per unit, which typically there's around 7 to 9 of those within a course or a year. These assessments are highly aligned to the Maryland College and Career Ready standards and MCAP, our curriculum resources that our teachers are provided. We have formative assessments built into all of our lessons that align to these assessments as well. And they provide our teachers with summative data about how our students are performing in preparation for MCAP. So we use these assessments at the building level for goal setting for individual students and for providing interventions as needed. And we'll talk a little bit more about where we're going with professional learning for that in a moment. But we have cumulative assessments for our middle schools as well. So these are end of course assessments, local end of course assessments. I can mention it now, but we used to have benchmarks that were like 2/3 of the way through the course. And we had made a shift in that because of the multiple common unit assessments, 7 to 9 of them per course. We felt like we had a really good pulse on how our students were performing leading up, and we wanted to start monitoring the completion and student performance on the whole scope and sequence of a course. We have been using that data at the individual student level and for teachers to plan for the students that they have coming to them. We want to shift our professional learning around more of a proactive approach rather than reactive. So some of the things that we're working on with professional learning is pre-teaching, teaching teachers how to use flexible groupings based on the data, taking the guesswork out of it. When we have our students coming in to our classrooms, we have a wealth of information on them now about how they've been performing in the previous standards. So now that we know this about their prerequisite standards, we can better align our instruction for the kids that we have in front of us that day. So that's where a lot of our professional learning is going. With having so much data, it would be a complete missed opportunity if we don't teach teachers how to use it, right? Like that's the important part. Like we can have all the assessments, but if we're not using it for something to make impact on students, then it's just a missed opportunity. So a lot of the stuff that we're doing with professional learning surrounds that. So the next part will be some more specifics about the assessments. First off is IXL diagnostic. So we have the beginning of the year assessment. We have data in for that, and 62% of all of our middle school students were performing above the national average. At our middle of the year snapshot, we had 69% of all of our middle school students performing above the national average. And I was really excited to share that growth with you all tonight because that's a huge achievement. Again, I said we started off with this as closing learning gaps for students. It's predominantly skills-based, but we have been growing on average more than a year's worth of math knowledge for our students. And that's a target we set 3 years ago when we implemented IXL, or 4 years ago. And we've provided professional learning. Our teachers have learned how to use that through the instructional practices, and it has really taken off. So to see that type of growth and the closing of the learning gaps has been amazing. Next part would be our cumulative assessment data. So we did want to compare this to what our benchmark data used to be, because last year was our first implementation of the cumulative assessments. You will see here that there are increases as well. The When there are slight decreases, it is just important to note that now we are assessing the entire scope and sequence of a course rather than just 2/3 of the way through. So that's really important. Having similar performance, but being able to retain that information over the longer period of time is a pretty big accomplishment for our students. So that is, again, I mentioned earlier how we're using this data, like really being able to get down to the individual student level. It's been very meaningful for us in our achievement team meetings. Now to transition into the high school data, the assessments here and the purposes are very, very similar to the middle school ones. We have the diagnostic snapshot, the common unit assessments, and the final exam, which would replace the cumulative assessment. The important part to notice here is we've put in a lot of effort to increase the coherence and continuity of our programs for both the students, families, and teachers. So students, we want them to have a very similar experience across all the math classes that they have, in terms of like how an assessment is given, how the items on the assessment, the modalities. We're highly aligned to the MCAP, so we want that a consistent experience throughout all the years. But we are seeing that continuity, and when we're implementing the curriculum with fidelity and we're delivering the assessments and utilizing the data, it's paying its dividends in our growth. So to start off with high school IXL, we have fall data in from start to finish. So we ended up the fall semester with 61% of our high school students performing above the national average. I didn't mention earlier, but the IXL data is nationally normed, and it was most recently normed for this coming school year. So this is all very currently normed data. We started off in the fall at 57%, so that was a nice jump as well. In the spring, I don't have mid-year data yet. We're in the snapshot window right now, but I can share with you where we started off as a whole. So we were at 52% of our students scoring above the national average. And then similarly to with middle school, we realigned our curriculum and our assessments to more closely match the Maryland College and Career Ready standards. What that means, realignment, means taking a deep look at our curriculum and making sure that we are hitting the targets that are in the standards. We did find in instances that we were undershooting the standards. We also found that we were overshooting the standards. And what that means is that we are not spending as much time, or we need to be spending the time, on hitting the targets and teaching what is going to be assessed. There's always time for that acceleration, that enrichment, but we need to know and have accurate targets. So by realigning, we were able to narrow down our targets. And so for the high school data, you'll see the data with asterisks. That's the year in which those final exams and the curriculums and the common unit assessments were all realigned to be more closely related to MCAT and the College Career Ready standards. In those years, you can see significant jumps in proficiencies, and proficiency is, for what we measure, is 70% or higher, so getting a C or better on the exams. This is only fall data as well. It's not whole year data, just because we don't have this whole year, the full picture, and we figured comparing fall to fall would be the better metric here. The only one that we didn't see that jump in Algebra 2 that year that we did the realignment, but you see we put in the work by looking at the instructional strategies and saw the bigger jump this fall right here. Before we go on to that, I know Mr. Wernick, he's going to come up and talk about the next steps. But I just wanted to preface how important it is to us that we use this data to do something meaningful to impact students. It's a central part of our professional learning. And as Mr. Wernick goes through and talks about those next steps, just know that that's a crucial part, is having this data and being able to do something really meaningful with it. So thank you.
Our mathematics next steps are very similar. It's really about ensuring that our teachers have those tools to be able to provide the daily instruction that our students need. It's really about providing those just-in-time assessments, providing those just-in-time interventions and strategies, and being responsive to the instructional practices of every learner. It's really through that targeted professional learning of our teachers, reviewing the assessment results and their own results, and progress monitoring to ensure that our teachers have those teaching strategies, pre-teaching strategies, and those interventions to support our students. So very similar next steps that we look forward to within our ELA strategies. Any questions?
Dr. Dorsey?
Certainly a lot on data, and I'm trying to piece together what I'm hearing in the presentation today with some of the concerns that we have been hearing from teachers as far as the overload is concerned. I mean, I know there's a lot certainly that we can learn from data, and a lot of ways we can certainly use the data to improve our instruction. But I think back, there was a little demonstration of how one of the tests had to be checked by the teacher, and the test was on a computer, it was on a laptop, and it was pretty cumbersome with how the teacher had to sort of scroll from screen to screen to really look at the student's work. So I think that certainly bubbled as certainly an area of concern. And I guess another concern that I remember hearing about is that the pacing of all of it. It's almost like every student was almost expected to be at a certain place at a certain time. So if they didn't get a previous skill, there really wasn't a lot of time. I know there might be some interventions in place, but there was never, it seemed like, a time to really make sure that the student actually got what was missed before having to move forward. So it certainly came across, as an area of frustration. And again, data, it's there. Yes, we need it. And but you sort of question, I guess, and I'm sort of questioning how much of it we do actually need. And, we don't want to make it cumbersome for the teachers. And we certainly want to make sure that we are teaching to what the data is actually showing us, because teachers are saying well, we have to give the next test whether the students are really ready for it or not. And just seems to be some disjoints there as far as I can see.
We align our curriculum based on the state standards, and so we need to make sure that all our indicators there. But what we do try to do is ensure that it's not a burden to our teachers. So we try to provide assessments that are scored electronically or through Performance Matters, or IXL automatically levels and scores students' assessments. We try to provide quick diagnostic approaches so that our teachers don't have to go home and score as much, as they used to, either through paper and pencil or just through reading, like you said, the computer screen. So that is our goal as we continue to monitor and adjust our assessments. The other piece is we really want to make sure that our assessments inform data decisions, and so that they're more of a quick interval or unit assessment instead of waiting to the end of the year when it's too late, so that we can inspire those skills either through warm-ups or through different types of approaches within the classroom instruction, so that they're constantly receiving those skills if they're lacking, or that they're able to enhance and enrich their skills that they may already have a grasp of. So absolutely, I agree with you, Dr. Dorsey.
Yeah,
Yep.
just seemed to be an area of frustration.
It's all about that smart balance.
Yeah.
There are the state standards in which our curricula is aligned to is rigorous, and it does move fast. It's that smart balance of making sure that the assessment that we're giving is giving us the data that we need to change our instruction, provide additional supports, revise our curricula as we go. So that's something that we're always trying to check and balance. Are the assessments that we're administering giving us the information that we need to improve practices and improve student achievement? And that's that delicate balance. Obviously, if there's ever a time where something isn't giving us the information that we need, we make an adjustment or a revision to it. And Mr. Wernick hit it perfectly in trying to utilize those resources that are easily scored, easily disaggregated. However, a lot of our resources we've developed, because we found success in that in time, we're trying to incorporate more instructional resources that take some of that guesswork out for us. But it's always just trying to find that smart balance in our assessment and making sure it's driving our curriculum instruction as it should.
And I'll just add to that, you know, I was an administrator and then a supervisor when all of this first started happening, especially with unit assessments, benchmark assessments. And, you know, one thing I'll never forget is that when we started this, there were a lot of students who were just completely failing some of the assessments that we were giving. And when we started digging in and talking with our teachers and our instructional leaders, the tradition was that the teacher taught, and wherever he or she left off at the end of the year, that's where they left off. So if they were supposed to get through this much curriculum, but they only got through this much, this was never taught. And so, as Mr. Shockney said, this is a delicate balance between having to keep on a certain pace in order to teach the curriculum that is essential for that grade level or that course content, and at the same time not going so fast that you lose all of the students in the process. And that's why teachers are the professionals that they are and have the knowledge and skills that they do. And so, you know, pacing will always be a tension for teachers, always, and for principals, because it's that delicate balance between making sure you're doing what we're asking you to do and that you're getting through what you need to get through, and at the same time doing it in a way where students are successful. But it is one, pacing and assessing in that way is one way that we ensure that our curriculum is being taught.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just know that's certainly a challenge.
Very much so.
Dr. Malva?
Yeah, half of what I wanted to ask, my colleagues asked, and in particular, it's with the mathematics and taking it from a student's viewpoint with the both middle school and high school mathematics assessments. You have your common unit assessments, or one per unit, almost like a test per se. And again, my question was similar to theirs in terms of students have told me, I've gone to this assessment or I've gotten to this point, but I don't fully have the skills yet to move on to the next. And it can have this domino effect. And I just don't know how we make sure that no one's left behind as we go on to the next unit and the next unit. And the other half of it is that how do we also make sure that our teachers aren't teaching to the tests sort of approach?
So twofold. When we look at our unit assessments, that's why we give them, and that we're not waiting until 2/3 of the year. We're really assessing those skills that the students just learned. And so it's not teaching to a test. It's really looking at the skills and aligning our assessments to the skills that are taught so that we can see how our students performed. And then we're able to spiral that information either through an intervention approach or just through a classroom structure where we provide that spiral learning throughout the year, because as we know, especially in math, those skills build on each other. And so not having one skill would be detrimental. So it's ensuring that we continuously apply those skills throughout the learning and the teaching, especially during independent work with those students, so that they're able to grasp it. And then if needed, then the teacher can pull those students back for a little bit more of an intervention model to support those students directly.
Great. One other question I had. On the slide where you have high school mathematics data, there was that note, of course, year that the final exam was realigned, and it's pretty dramatic sometimes. Or it is like say with Algebra 1 went from 18% to 47%, what exactly, or what kind of alignment occurred for these sort of results?
Sure, I have Mr. Milkey actually come up and share that information with you.
Thanks. So it really was looking at the standards that were supposed to be taught in the course and making sure that when we built out resources for teachers to align their instruction to, it was more, there was more alignment, it was more transparent. It wasn't teachers just teaching whatever topic or to whatever depth it was that they like to normally teach to. It was really showing them this is the standard, this is what a student would need to perform on to be successful. Based off of the state standards. So when we looked at it, there were instances where we definitely overshot the standard and we were assessing them way above the assessment limits, because the state does give us assessment limits for standards. And there were some instances where we were way below and not rigorous enough. So I think it was that whole piece there. And then it really does boil down to providing teachers with resources that align to those. So our curriculum was realigned in that same year, and we have just a much better structure to our curriculum that flows in the model of instruction, the CCPS model for quality instruction that we want to see. So it really came down to that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I have a question and a statement. If we go back to the elementary mathematics data, a lot of the 2024 to 2025 mid-year scores kind of align with 2025 to 2026 mid-year, except for third grade. There's almost a 10% decrease. Was there like a curriculum change? Or I was just curious.
Are you sharing between mid-year to mid-year or mid-year to end of year?
It was the 2024 to 2025 mid-year, and then the 2025 to 2026 mid-year.
Very good. I will have Mrs. Marcy Myers come up and share some of that information and her insights.
Thank you. That's a very good question. And what we started this year was a targeted and guided pilot for third grade math to more align with high quality instructional materials and provide more consistent resources for some of our teachers who are teaching STEM this year. We know that our third grade teachers who are teaching everything, all content areas, have a very heavy lift with the benchmark advance. So we wanted them to be able to focus on the reading implementation of the new curriculum resource. So with some of that, and the standards are all the same. So we're all teaching to the same standards and assessment, and the assessment stayed the same. But what we did was we had a shift of the resource that we're beginning to use and trying out that pilot, getting the feedback from the teachers, looking at the assessment data, looking at what the students are learning. There's some other factors that we took a really deep dive into to kind of evaluate, and meeting with administrators, talking with the math resource teachers, providing additional support. So you're very astute too. I noticed that third grade, but we are definitely looked very closely at that in February and went into gear to kind of correct that, go back and look at it, and then provide additional reteaching or professional learning opportunities or whatever the students would need or the teachers.
Thank you. And then I just wanted to say like a statement about IXL, like in general. I took Algebra 2 last year at Liberty High School, and I loved IXL. It's genuinely such an amazing tool. It provides lots of help with tutorials for just missed questions in general. There's leaderboards for some just regular friendly competition. I guess like that kind of motivated me in my class to, be at the top of the leaderboard. It was really nice. And then it's almost kind of like self-paced in the way that you get extra practice if you need it, even if it's not assigned to you. And my teacher, she used to assign homework through IXL, so I thought that was nice because it kind of reduced paper and pencil grading for her and also helped us with practicing at the same time, like prepare for, tests and stuff. So just voicing my support for that. I loved IXL.
Thank you. Yeah, as a former math teacher, I was glad to see us talk about IXL 3 years ago when I came on the board. It's a wonderful tool. Things that Dr. McCabe was mentioning, scope and sequence and not getting enough time to go through the entire, it's funny. And it's also a matter of when you test the students. We're testing the students in the spring, but we're testing them on content that's supposed to go all throughout the year. So a lot of challenges, but the pacing, the scope and sequence, and the amount we have them test to that we haven't taught yet, I think those are big contributors as to why you see the scores the way you see them. And just to frame this for our folks listening at home, Carroll County is third in the state with math, and we're 1 percentage point away from second place. Now, granted, that's only 41%. That means 59% of the kids aren't making it. And that's because of the culprits we just talked about, the scope and sequence, the planning, testing everything in the year when it's not even been the full year yet. And I think it's important to not look at these results by themselves, because if you look at, like, for example, our SAT scores, Carroll County is one of the best in the state with regards to SAT scores. So, before we get angry emails from folks saying, well, yeah, but what about the 59%? I get that. But I appreciate the work that all of you are doing to help our students get better, using data to help our educators, using tools like IXL, and hopefully AI in the future to help our ELA teachers do things automatically rather than burden them with more data collection and documentation. But I appreciate the level of effort that goes into this every day. And I know it drives what you do in the summertime with curriculum development. So thank you so much. Any other questions, colleagues? Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Next, we'll move on to reports. Agenda item 4 Alpha, School Construction Report. Dr. McCabe.
We have the monthly construction report providing status updates. As always, Mr. Prokop is available for any questions you may have.
Colleagues, anything? All right, Mr. Prokop, you get to stay seated. Next item on the agenda, 4 Bravo, legislative report. Dr. McCabe.
The General Assembly ended on Monday night at midnight. Mr. O'Neill has updated the legislative report to reflect the bills that have passed and any other actions by the General Assembly. I'll ask him to highlight some key items and respond to any board questions. Mr. O'Neill?
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. McCabe. The report that you have, or that's on the screen, is my best attempt to capture bills that passed, shaded in green, bills that we were tracking throughout that passed one chamber or another, or in some cases passed both chambers, but were never reconciled into a final single bill and therefore passed the General Assembly, are shaded in red or light red, meaning they did not pass. Overall, the operating budget of the state, no big surprises from where we were planning your budget back in January versus where the General Assembly ended, so there might always be a little change here or there, but we anticipate when we get the state funding formula from MSDE in May, hopefully, it'll be very, very close to what we programmed into the budget as an estimate. The capital budget, no change to the overall dollar amount for the general state capital budget, which is really the desire that local boards of ed have across the state, that somehow that pot of money could grow bigger. There were some tweaks in some of the targeted smaller programs, and one of those will have some impact for us. The General Assembly reordered how they'll be handing out the money in the enrollment growth and relocatable fund. And so before you enter the General Assembly each year, the IAC, the state body in charge of construction, divvies out 90% of approved projects, sort of based on all of the pots of money. And believe it or not, even though our enrollment has shifted the last couple of years, eligibility for the enrollment growth and relocatable fund is based over a time span. So we were still eligible for a little bit of money there. The General Assembly made some changes that makes us and some other smaller counties not eligible for that money. And so what will have to happen now is post-General Assembly, the IAC staff will need to go back and kind of start, not over, but at the beginning of their spreadsheet, and redistribute funds across the state based on that. So that was a bit of a strange twist. Also, General Assembly passed House Bill 1430, which is remarked on here in the capital narrative, but also later in the bill list. And that's a bill that prospectively, beginning in fiscal 28, will begin to set up a level of state funding for charter school facility improvements. And so that's that's a step in a new direction for the state that hasn't existed before. As for the bills, I can't in any way go through all of these. Some of you may have comments. I'll just highlight a couple that are worth noting in some way. They are now also organized into kind of categories, so and they're sort of alphabetized by category, so budgets first, and then curriculum and so forth. I would point out that under budget and fiscal management, Senate Bill 646, House Bill 1604, and you don't have to try to find them, Brenda. You'll get dizzy and I might fall out. That's a MABE-sponsored bill, or a MABE-sought bill that someone sponsored for MABE, and what it does is it aligns now boards of ed with other public entities in Maryland, like public colleges and universities. And it puts certain protections in place in contracts for boards of ed that even if a contract has some language that's disfavorable, this law would preclude that language. So for instance, when you click on an app on a phone or a computer, there's that, you have to scroll through that terms of service to then say, I accept. There may be conditions in there that are not necessarily favorable to a school system, like, for instance, if there's a dispute about the use of this app or whatever related to this app, that dispute will be adjudicated in the Virgin Islands court or something like that, another state's court. This bill would erase those things from harming boards of ed. So that was MABE's push for the year. Under curriculum and instruction, I'd point out House Bill 1582, which is the last bill in that section. That was MSDE's departmental bill. And what that bill will do now that it's law signed, it will sort of reweight the criteria that MSDE uses for the Maryland report card analysis, the star ratings, if you will. And in general, I think it'll allow a little greater flexibility. I think overall it's a positive, so there's a bonus there. I've already talked about House Bill 1430. Under governance, Senate Bill 311, it's the second bill in that section. That's the AIB's departmental bill this year. No major changes to Blueprint, substantive changes to Blueprint. It's sort of an election year and a budget structural deficit, so not great changes, but there are some tweaks there that'll have meaning for our system and other systems. They're sort of holding the comp ed funding system in place for a few years. It also extends the exemption that administrators hold national board certification until 2034, so actually beyond the original window of Blueprint. There's some other changes in there, especially in the area of CTE, the CTE committee, but I'll skip those. Pupil transportation, the first bill, HB 319, some years ago, Mike would have to tell me how many years it's been, 3 or 4 years ago, the General Assembly for the first time allowed local school systems to use smaller transportation vehicles than Type 2 school buses to transport more than one kid. So the weirdness of COMAR in Maryland has always been that a single student could be transported any way you wish, in a taxi cab, on a horse. It doesn't matter if it's one student, but more than one student needed to be on, the big chrome bus that you're used to seeing. A couple of years ago, the General Assembly allowed for smaller transportation vehicles, the vans. This actually has relevance to an award of bids item later tonight for us. So that was enacted, but with a sunset, meaning it was going to be allowed for a period of years and then it would go away without the General Assembly taking further action. This bill makes that permanent, so that's now a transportation solution. We use it in very sparing ways, but that's a transportation solution that continues. Under school security, I want to highlight Senate Bill 685. This also could have probably been an HR bill, depending on how you want to look at it. This is a bill, it's interesting. It's a bill that will require, in its final format, will require MSDE to create a model policy that local boards eventually will have to adopt for how to report and communicate during times when there's allegations of abuse among a staff member. And I guess it's an attempt to try to bridge. There's always the concern that some community members would have about communicating and why aren't you communicating? But there's also always been a balance there between confidentiality that's in the law, first of all, but secondly, if there's a matter that a law enforcement agency is actively investigating, we would never want to do anything that would in any way damage their ability to investigate and ultimately prosecute if necessary. So this is an interesting watch for me. It'll be very fascinating to see what that model policy looks like when it's developed by MSDE. And then lastly, and I'll stop here, under the Student Services, et cetera section, Senate Bill 928 is the General Assembly's cell phone bill. And so it will require a model state policy on cell phone. It's basically an off and away policy, and the state has to develop the model policy for school year 27-28, and every local board will have to submit either a new or a refined, revised, modified policy that conforms to that model policy by September of 27. So, Mr. Shockney and his folks will need to spend some time on that and look at what changes that might entail. I could tell you just right off the bat, it will require changes to our high school, the high school portion of our policy, because it's essentially off and away for all students all day, all the school day long. And we allow those small periods of the day where students at the high school level can have their cell phones. I'll pause there. The only other thing I want to say, for anybody that wants to look at one of these bills, click on it and read it. If you're on the online version, those links are active. But what I'll say to you is when you go to the bill, when you click on the link to go to the General Assembly's website section for that bill, it's not as simple yet as saying there's that little hyperlink for the number of the bill right up at the top left corner, like SB 311. You can't click on that to see the version that passed. That's the version that was originally introduced in the General Assembly back in whenever, January, February. You have to go down a little bit to the middle of the page to where you see some drop-down choices. One of those drop-down choices is history. You'll want to click on history. It will open up and you'll see every date that any portion of the General Assembly took an action on a bill. You want to find the version that says text enrolled, because that's the final version that passed. That's the version that's been submitted to the governor for his consideration and signature. I'll pause there. I know Dr. McCabe does a lot of work with the Superintendent's Association Legislative Committee. Dr. Dorsey and Mr. Whistler both serve on the MABE Legislative Committee, and so you may have questions or comments of your own.
Any comments from colleagues? I have a couple of comments I just wanted to highlight. Some winners and some losers down there, at least from my perspective. On page 3 is Senate Bill 283, House Bill 391. I think it's a big win for our state. The legislature has authorized $1.8 billion in borrowing to help improve our infrastructure of our schools and buildings statewide. So $1.8 billion being authorized, and I'm going to be interested to see how much Carroll County gets, because that could really help improve our infrastructure of our schools. Some of the things that we'll talk about with our commissioners in our future joint meeting. You mentioned on page 6, House Bill 1430 and Senate Bill 960, charter school maintenance funding. That's good news. It's going to bring more dollars to the county to help provide maintenance and infrastructure costs for our charter school when that opens next year. On page 12 was House Bill 102, Senate Bill 263. Something I worked on personally was trying to advance the advanced enrollment of active duty personnel children. So 2/3 of military transfers occur during the summer months between May and August. And so it really gives those active duty families coming into our region an opportunity to enroll in school before they get here. So that's a very good bill that we saw passed down in the state legislature. And then finally on page 15 is Senate Bill 720 and House Bill 1057. The state legislature really wants us to come together as a state on how we use AI in our schools, not just from educating our kids and teaching our kids how to use AI, but how we help use AI to improve educator training, how we use AI in our school systems to improve business functions. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how we progress on developing our AI policies and procedures and meet those state requirements. Some things that concern me on page 6, sorry to make you scroll backwards, Senate Bill 218 and House Bill 288, Senate Bill 218, House Bill 288. The state legislature has given our Maryland State Department of Education superintendent the ability to close down schools for 14 days or more and bypass local control. And that's a concern to me. That's something that we saw during the COVID era. But now this law allows our state superintendent to close down schools 14 days at least with no ceiling. And that's a very big concern to me. On page 12, Senate Bill 810, House Bill 1341. I think we have a speaker tonight talking about the Community Act. It forbids cooperation with federal authorities, and my concern is, again, I'm not going to get into politics of it all, but my concern is whether or not that'll place our school system in violation of the supremacy clause and some of the things if we're ever served by federal authorities. And then finally on page 13, House Bill 575 is the state has passed a law that will allow excused absences for students that want to leave school for civil engagements. And so, again, I'm just, anything that gives kids opportunities, the chance to leave school. Again, what parents want to do with their children is their business, but the fact that we're encouraging folks to miss school is a little troubling to me. But those were the things that I was tracking. I know Dr. Dorsey and I, we worked on hundreds of bills. And again, I don't know, Dr. McCabe, if you have anything you want to mention from PZAM's perspective, but our PZAM, I love that acronym. We worked hand in hand with PZAM to lobby our legislators in Annapolis this year too.
No, I think one of the ones that is on our mind is the cell phone policy. And that implementation, even though we wouldn't have to put it into effect next year, we would have to make sure that we're in alignment for 28.
Yeah, I know our body in MABE Legislative Committee, we opposed that bill only because it took away local control. Mm-hmm. Again, we generally oppose any bills within MABE if it takes away local control from local education authorities like ours. But nevertheless, they enacted it and we will comply.
Mm-hmm. And I guess the bottom line is that most local systems already had their own policies mm-hmm. for cell phones anyway, mm-hmm. so.
Yeah, again, one of the things I appreciate about MABE and our legislative committee and our PZAM partners is that we do try to oppose legislation that takes away local control. We think local control is where it's done and where it's done best. But yeah, any other comments, colleagues, at all?
Well, I guess we'll be having a final meeting, on the
yes.
27th or sometime
we'll
soon.
Get a wrap up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the wrap up from the entire committee.
And I got to tell you, Mr. O'Neill, this is an amazing, did you do this report or your team? This is an amazing piece of document here. This is one of the best documents I've ever seen with regards to helping us track and understand all of the bills that affect our school system. And I really appreciate this. This is great work. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Neill. Sure. Appreciate the color coordinating.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now moving on to item 4 Charlie, 4C, Personnel Transaction Report. Dr. McCabe.
A motion. I'll make a motion.
Actually, I don't think that's an action item yet.
No, we're still on report.
I'm sorry.
Each year in the spring, I bring to the board a report detailing the changes in administrator assignments that I am implementing for the next school year. As a reminder for the board and the public, these movements are a normal annual process. We always review our school leadership teams to align teams that meet the needs of our school communities. Also, particularly in the case of assistant principals, we like to offer our leaders new professional growth experiences by serving a different community and working with different principals. Because, in effect, we're getting them ready to be principals. One other specific note on the list of transfers. You will see that Ms. Katie Neflin, who is the principal at Westminster High, will be assigned as an assistant principal next year at Liberty. This is a unique situation in that Katie Neflin is confronting a situation in her family, and she has given us permission to speak about it publicly. Her daughter has suffered a relapse with rare blood cancer that has pulled her away from school. Ms. Neflin came forward and asked to step back as principal of Westminster High School and move into a role that will allow her to continue to support students and staff in CCPS, while also providing her the flexibility and time to care for her daughter for the time being. We will all keep her daughter, and her family in our thoughts as they go through with this process. With that, here are my administrator transfers effective July 1st. Tom Riddle, Principal at Career and Technology Center, to Principal, Westminster High. Katie Neflin, Principal, Westminster High, to Assistant Principal, Liberty High. Andrew Mann, Assistant Principal, Oklahoma Road Middle, to Assistant Principal, Northwest Middle. Alyssa Narcross, Assistant Principal, Northwest Middle, to Assistant Principal, Shiloh Middle. Daniel Black, Assistant Principal, Shiloh Middle, to Assistant Principal, Oklahoma Road Middle. Brianna Bauer, Principal at Tawnytown Elementary, to Principal, Piney Ridge Elementary. John Code, Principal, Piney Ridge Elementary, to Principal, Winfield Elementary. Catherine Perper, Principal at Winfield Elementary, to Principal at Tawnytown Elementary. Gregory Rader, Assistant Principal at Cranberry Station Elementary, to Assistant Principal at Hampstead Elementary. Melissa Sabery, Assistant Principal at Hampstead Elementary, to Assistant Principal at Cranberry Station Elementary. Jennifer Mitchell, Assistant Principal at Friendship Valley Elementary, to Assistant Principal at Runnymede Elementary. And finally, Christina Shepard, Assistant Principal at Elmer Wolf Elementary, to Assistant Principal at Friendship Valley Elementary.
Thank you, Dr. McCabe. Again, we really appreciate the administrators, and again, it's meant to diversify their skill sets, and we appreciate them and wish them best in their new adventure at the next school. Next on our agenda is public comments. Dr. Dorsey, the floor is yours.
To have an orderly presentation of comments by the public, the following guidelines apply. Number one, speakers with a connection to CCPS will be allowed to address the board for the allotted 3 minutes. Only those speakers that have registered online and have been notified by the Communications Department will be permitted to speak. Priority will be given to those citizens that are addressing the board about an item on the current agenda. Citizens not appearing in person for public comment can write to the board through email or U.S. mail. Number two, public participation is not intended to be a question and answer session. However, if citizens have specific questions, the superintendent will assign a staff member to make contact during the board meeting to arrange a time to respond to questions. Number three, the superintendent/board reserve the right to correct misinformation presented as factual after the conclusion of the public participation period. Number four, statements to the board should relate to a recent agenda item, an agenda item that is expected to appear in the future, or a matter of general policy over which the board has authority. Personnel matters, pending appeals, the actions or statements of individual staff, or items related to employee negotiations are not appropriate topics and may not be discussed. Number five, the board has scheduled time on the agenda for public participation at approximately 5:15 p.m. The board reserves the right to limit the number of speakers on a particular topic so that all topics may be addressed. Additionally, the board retains the discretion to allow additional speakers as it deems appropriate. The board is allowing no more than an hour for public participation. Number six, comments are limited to 3 minutes or less. All comments should be directed to the board members at the dais. Citizens may only address the board with their individual comments. Citizens may not stand in for another person or group and read their comments. When the allotted time expires, the speaker is permitted to complete a sentence. Citizens may leave any handouts for board members on the table at the back of the boardroom. Please do not approach the dais. Additionally, the public may not display signs or posters during the board meeting. In lieu of signs, or if you are unable to complete your comments in the allotted time, individuals are encouraged to submit remarks to the board in writing. And finally, number seven, those seated in the audience are asked to be respectful of the speaker and refrain from commenting to the speaker or to the board members. And with that, we will move to our speakers for the evening. We have four. Our first speaker will be Sharon Wilhide.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Wilhide. I'm a parent to 2 elementary-age children in CCPS and a candidate for the Board of Ed. There was a speaker last month who spoke about his experience with special education in CCPS, a young man that I want to commend for being brave and strong enough to stand here and tell his story. His story really resonated with me and made me reflect about my own story with special education within CCPS. When I started working for CCPS as an itinerant teacher for deaf and hard of hearing students, I had 1/3 of the county. A few years in, one of my amazing coworkers retired. Instead of replacing her, the position was phased out. So then I had half of the county. Just as you have decided to phase out 15 positions for the upcoming school year. Most days, that meant starting before my contracted hours, eating lunch in my car while driving between schools, not getting my planning period, and leaving after my contracted hours. I was exhausted. I knew that my students were not getting the services that they deserved. I was not supported by my supervisor and received no help when asked. I went home many days in tears. Additionally, this was during the pay freeze, so I was making the same salary year after year. As a parent years later, my son began with birth through 5 because he was choking when he transitioned to solid foods at 1 year old. He had a fabulous OT that came out and provided home visits, supporting us to properly use his oral motor skills. As a special educator, I knew there was a likely chance his speech would probably be delayed due to poor oral motor planning. His 2nd birthday came, he wasn't talking at all. An SLP tested him in our home, qualifying him for speech services. However, there wasn't an SLP in my area, so we were offered virtual services with a contracted SLP in another state. Although an IFSP is typically a parent coaching model, if you know anything about a 2-year-old boy, receiving early intervention services on a screen is completely inappropriate. Luckily, our private insurance covered private speech therapy, and we took him twice a week for almost a year before transitioning to an IEP at age 3, and he was able to receive school-based services. On top of my personal experiences as a teacher and a parent, I have multiple friends around the county who have had difficulty getting appropriate special education services for their child with special needs within CCPS. Families that have enough to worry about and have had to advocate and fight for their children to get the quality education they deserve. It shouldn't be this way. As you're moving forward with the budget for the next fiscal year and meeting with the commissioners next week, I urge you to think about all of the students within CCPS, including special education students. Think about that when you move forward with eliminating 15 FTE because they will just retire or resign. What kind of impact is that going to have on students like the speaker last month, like my son, like the thousands of students in Carroll County who are legally entitled to a free and appropriate public education in their least restrictive environment? In honor of our 250th anniversary, I'm going to end on a quick quote from John F. Kennedy that said, "Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there's a private hope and dream which, fulfilled, can be translated into benefit for everyone and greater
you can
strength
finish your comment.
for our
Okay,
nation."
You got
Thank
it
you.
in. Okay, great. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ben Marcus. Okay. We'll move to the next speaker on the list, Diana Bergman.
Hi, everyone. I would like to recognize that April is the month of Military Child. I'm Diana Bergman, and I'm a parent to students in Carroll County Public Schools. And it's not a secret that I'm a candidate for the Maryland House of Delegates District 5. Back in January 14 of 2026, I attended the 449th opening day of the Maryland General Assembly, and I also attended the Board of Ed meeting. I stated that I stood in solidarity with CASA's legislative agenda to end 287G agreements and end state and local collaboration with ICE and expand data privacy protection. In Annapolis, we ended 287G agreement. We passed the data privacy protection, and we passed the Community Trust Act. As a mother and an active member of Carroll County Public School community, I was very vocal on the opposition to the CCPS policy JIHA immigration enforcement. Oh, did I mention? We expanded the Maryland Value Act to add additional sensitive locations to include food pantries. Maryland Senate Bill 810, titled Maryland's Value Act of 2026, restricts public school security personnel from participating in federal immigration enforcement, prohibits sharing student and employment information for such purposes, and expands the sensitive locations to include schools and food pantries. I didn't just show up to Annapolis to work in Annapolis. I collaborated with local organizations. I wrote emails. I met with public officials from surrounding jurisdictions, and I stayed into the very end, from the beginning until closing. I have the relationships to help all who reside in Carroll County, and I have strong work ethics, and I do as I say I'm going to do. I don't underestimate what I'm capable of doing. I will pull my heart and energy to represent all of us and deliver every single time. I remember what I was told and how I was treated, and I encourage you to remember how it was handled. Together, like-minded individuals from our community and surrounding communities, we organized, we sent correspondence, we met with different organizations such as Carroll County Immigration Rights Collective, We Are CASA, Indivisible Carroll County, Frederick, Catonsville, Townsend, Jews United for Justice, and Progressive Maryland. We made this possible and imagine how much more we could accomplish when we include everyone and work together. I'm Diana Bergman, and I will work hard to help others and make sure everyone feels included in the conversation. We don't just push back, we push forward for immigrants like myself who should feel safe and treated as part of our school community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our final speaker for the evening is Marcia Herbert.
Good afternoon, Dr. McCabe, President Whistler, and members of the board. I am Marcia Herbert, past president of the Carroll County Board of Education. This afternoon, I would like to take this opportunity to commend a Carroll County business partner, Greenmount Station. On March 12th, the Manchester girls varsity basketball team traveled to UMBC to play Glenelg High School for the 2A state championship. Manchester won the 2A championship with a score of 46-39. A job well done, and congratulations to Heather DeWeese, her other coaches, and the team. On the way back to Manchester Valley, the team was escorted through Hampstead and Manchester by the Upperco, Hampstead, and Manchester fire departments, along with the Hampstead and Manchester police departments, and of course we cannot forget the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. There were so many videos about their trip home on the internet with flashing lights and sirens. The girls will always have those fond memories back to school. But there was one big standout that evening, Chris Richards, who owns Greenmount Station. Chris has always been a community activist for many years. Chris was actually a graduate from North Carroll High School, who I taught, and an athlete. When you walk into his restaurant, there are pictures of local, state, and national athletes, trophies, state championship plaques, signed baseballs, signed uniforms, and the list goes on, and my 1977 state field hockey championship plaques there. And they're all displayed throughout the restaurant. But March 12th was different. After the big win, Chris opened his doors of his restaurant with open arms and provided the champions a celebratory dinner. Students of Manchester Valley, family, and friends joined in with the event. Events like this make partnerships with Carroll County Public Schools system a real winner. That kind of gesture was genuinely a positive community school partnership, and that should be brought to the attention of the forefront and give them a special thank you. And I wanted to make sure that this was noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben Marcus, last call. Okay, that ends our public speakers for the evening. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Dorsey. Again, now we'll move on to our action items. May I have a motion for the... Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm having an off day. I'm having a very big off day today. I am so sorry. How can I forget you?
Good evening, Superintendent McCabe and members of the Board of Education. I am Cindy Porter, a special education paraprofessional in my 27th year in Carroll County Public Schools, and I'm also the president of CASE, representing assistants and clericals working throughout our school system. Those of us who have been in education a few years begin to wonder at this time of year if our professions can get any busier than the year before, and yet they do. Budget cycles, state testing, staffing for next year, and many other topics are in the forefront of our thoughts and actions professionally. Add in what's going on in our personal lives, the craziness of our world right now, and it seems like we are on a hamster wheel we just can't get off of. But 2 weeks ago today, life slowed down a little as we watched the crew of Artemis II blast off into space for 10 days that drew our attention to the wonders and intricacies of space travel. That was the first time in 58 years since Apollo 8 became the first crewed mission to leave Earth's gravitational influence, reach and then orbit the moon. Artemis II's liftoff on April 1st was reminiscent of those space firsts back in the late 60s and 70s. As a young child, I remember everyone being glued to our televisions because of the sheer awe of what was being accomplished. The crew of Artemis II brought our country and millions of people who had never had the opportunity to experience something like this before back to our televisions and other viewing options. And this crew was even more special, as the commander of the mission was born in Baltimore and graduated from Delaney High School. Reed Weissman has served as a Navy fighter pilot and test pilot and was selected as an astronaut in 2009. He flew to the International Space Station in 2014 and served as the 17th Chief of the Astronaut Office from 2020 to 2022. Pilot Victor Glover became an astronaut in 2013 after being a Navy FA-18 pilot and graduate of the Air Force Test Pilot School. In 2020, he piloted the first operational flight of SpaceX's Crew Dragon to the International Space Station. He then served as a flight engineer on Expedition 64 and became the first Black American astronaut to live aboard the International Space Station. Mission Specialist Christina Cook is an American engineer and astronaut. In her career as an astronaut, she conducted the first all-female spacewalk and set the record for the longest single space flight by a woman during her long-term mission to the International Space Station in 2019-2020. Last but certainly not least, Jeremy Hansen is a Royal Canadian Air Force colonel and Canadian Space Agency astronaut who was selected to become an astronaut in 2009. On this journey, he became the first non-U.S. citizen to travel beyond low Earth orbit and the first to journey to the vicinity of the moon. This crew held our collective attention, not because of their return near the moon, but because of the cohesiveness and the humility they showed at every opportunity during their mission. They also named their Orion spacecraft Integrity, and they made it easy to see why. One of the moments that showed the connection among these four was when Jeremy Hansen radioed to Mission Control to let everyone know that they wanted to honor their mission by naming 2 craters they saw on the moon. They named one Integrity, the call sign and given name of their spacecraft, and the other one was named Carroll, spelled Carroll, in honor of Reed Weissman's late wife, who died of cancer in 2020. The crater named after her was described as a bright spot on the moon. The group could be seen embracing each other after the emotional tribute as they floated high above our Earth in zero gravity. I don't think it's a coincidence of the spelling of her name. You may wonder why I have gone into depth into this impromptu lesson on space. There are 2 reasons. One, this crew was the absolute best grouping of extraordinary individuals from different backgrounds and experiences who came together because of a common goal. And 2, and the most important reason, is that all of the people I mentioned above are graduates of public schools. In this time when differences of opinion and backgrounds are intentionally used to divide, these 4 amazing people are the evidence of what can be accomplished when the emphasis is placed on commonalities and working together for the greater good of humanity. They are also incredible examples of the power of public school education. They used their education, backgrounds, and experiences to come together to help us achieve something we have not attempted for the last 58 years. We should all be working together to champion public schools and find solutions to challenges and areas of concern, instead of publicizing those differences to create more divisiveness and utilizing them for political gain in a world that already provides far too many examples of those things. If those astronauts can accomplish all of those things in a very confined space for 10 days, traveling more than 250,000 miles from Earth and a total of 685,000 miles before their return, why can't we do that back here on Earth? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Ms. Celeste.
Good afternoon, Superintendent, board members. Celeste Jordan, President of CCEA. I'm sure you'll be disappointed that I have a Zoom meeting shortly, so I'm going to keep this brief. Last month, I spoke about the power of reading to a child. On March 21st, as some of you mentioned, CCA and CASE hosted a wonderful Read Across Maryland event at Career Tech. Thanks to the long-standing generosity of a community partner, Penguin Random House, and other people as well, we were able to put nearly 800 books into the hands of children across our community, something that never loses its magic. We're grateful for the Career Tech culinary students and Mr. Norwood for making pancakes, Mr. Riddle for ensuring everything ran smoothly and welcoming us into his school, Dr. McCabe, Dr. Malvo, and Ms. Zimmer for joining us. I do remember your little girl being very excited about her books. I was thrilled when I heard a couple of girls leaving the event yelling to each other that they would call each other because they were forming a book club, and that's how the love of reading spreads. After the event, the remaining books we had went to a local Girl Scout troop who's working on building little free libraries around Carroll County near places, I think they're looking at like Shepherd Staff and places like that where sometimes people in need go and they'll have a free library right there. It's a big event to organize, but it's exactly the kind of community connection our schools should be proud of. And while events like this highlight the very best of our schools and our community, I need to shift to a much more serious concern. Today marks 591 days since some of your most veteran employees in the CCA bargaining unit have received a salary increase. On March 15th, eligible employees received an increase, moving one interval on the career ladder. However, nearly 20% of our bargaining unit was not eligible for that movement. These are not new employees. These are not short-term employees. These are the same educators who endured the 7-year salary freeze. These are the same educators who stayed when others left. And they are the same educators who remain committed to CCPS year after year. And for them, their salary has not increased since August 31st, 2024. We often talk about valuing experience because when nearly 1 in 5 of your educators sees no salary growth, the message is clear, even if unintended. At some point, appreciation has to show up in more than words. Teacher Appreciation Week is coming, but appreciation has to be more than pizza and thank you emails. And 591 days is more than enough time to prove it.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Now, I apologize for my error earlier. Now we'll go into the action items portion of the agenda. May I have a motion to approve our award of bids?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia. I'll second. Second by Dr. Dorsey. Any discussion? Actually, I'll turn it over to Dr. McCabe first.
There are 6 items on the award of bids. The first 3 items are all construction projects funded through the CIP. The first item, I'll ask Mr. O'Neill to speak on. It's our 3 pre-K additions for William Winchester, Spring Garden, and Westminster Elementary Schools.
Right, thank you, Dr. McCabe. So these are 3 of the next pre-K additions as part of the phased approach we're taking. And what we did want to share with you before you would take action tonight is that there'll be an out of sequence here. So we wanted to share this now so that in May it won't be a surprise. Approval of this award of bid as before you, especially including the additive alternates that are incorporated into the bid, some of the extra things we bid separately and then decide whether or not to include them, will exceed the budget as it stands now by a little over $1 million, $1,027,027 to be specific. We have a plan to eventually bring a capital transfer to you that in May or June that would make that budget whole. We have money in previous kindergarten projects, the projects at Sandy Mount, Cranberry, Friendship Valley, and Tawnytown. And so we're comfortable making that transfer. We coordinate and communicate with the county staff so that they're aware that this would be coming, because any transfer you make also has to be approved by the commissioners. But we just wanted, and for the sake of full transparency, to have that in front of you as you make a decision tonight. If you approve this tonight, in either May or June, we would be back with a CIP budget transfer. It's not more money from the county or from the state. It's just a transfer of existing funds from projects where it's not going to be needed.
Okay, so I'll go through the other items on the award of bids. The second item is the Shiloh Middle School roof replacement, Oklahoma Road Middle School roof replacement, alternative student transportation. For this one, for some years, we've been providing alternate student transportation for certain students on a limited basis. And these are isolated situations where we're unable to transport a student on the regular school bus, or in unique scenarios where the logistical obstacles preclude a standard bus. We recognize that alternative student transportation will remain in place for these specific cases, and we determined to put the program out for bid going forward. Next is the installation of security laminate at certain schools. We don't discuss which schools this is for security reasons. Next is furnish and installation of walk-in coolers and freezers at 3 schools, and this is funded through the food services program budget. Remember, they're a self-funded budget. And that's it.
The alternative transportation, if I might just add one thing,
Sure.
think of that amount as a not to exceed. I know sometimes Mr. Whistler will ask that question. We've been running around 500,000 or a little bit more a year with what we've been providing, but with new bid rates and the fact that, you know, it's grown a little bit over the years, we're setting a not to exceed at 750. And this is not a signal that we intend to expand the use. We still believe that the safest form of transportation is a student on a Type 2 school bus, and that will always be what we try to do. This is for isolated situations where we're just unable to transport a particular student on an existing bus, and that could be for a lot of different reasons. Maybe a student who needs certain medical or emotional support. And the other place where it sometimes comes into play is the transportation of homeless students who may now be residing 2 counties away or somewhere in Pennsylvania, and it would just become infeasible to try to logistically line them up with a series of school buses. Where, you know, you might have a student who'd be on the bus for 2 or 3 hours in that scenario just to get to school or from school. So it's not growing. It's just a reflection of the permanency and the fact that we do have new bid rates as well.
Okay. This was the only one that caught my eye. $750,000 is a lot of money. Can you give us an idea of how many students use this service?
9 students at the moment.
So 9 students for up to $750,000.
Well, we're showing budget actuals of more like 500,000.
Okay.
This is a not to exceed. So we try to never put ourselves in a situation where if we say 520 and then we're at 519, we have to come back here to you every time. So we're just trying to have a little bit of space there to be safe. But we've been averaging about $500,000 on this.
9 students, $500,000.
Now that fluctuates, Mr.
Right, I
Wilson.
understand.
9
I get
today,
it.
it could have been 12, it could be.
I'm just wondering if there's another way we could do this. Could we hire full-time staff, automobile, that, you know, we're providing the services rather than outsourcing this? This seems like a lot of money. Just a suggestion or a thought.
Yeah, we've thought about that. You know, over many, many years, we've moved away from running our own transportation fleet. That would be a change. We don't necessarily have the facilities. There's sort of a capital investment to suddenly have facilities, fleet management, mechanics. We've also thought about over the years of when might be the right time to approach our independent contractors and say, are any of you interested in this mode of transportation? But it's never been our intention to expand this. It's always been our intention to limit it as much as we need to, because we do. And other counties have a bit of a different philosophy on that. Not that they don't care about safety, they do. We've just been it's just our position that the safest way a student can be transported is on a Type 2 bus, and that's what we want to do unless it's just infeasible to do that. So we try to limit it as much as we can. But it's clearly not going away.
I understand. Dr. Malvo?
I was thinking maybe is a possibility of, and again, alternate student transportation, 9 families, you said about $500,000. What if, and possibly could we save if we had give a gas allowance to families and they drive their own children to school? Would it cost that much? And would some be willing to do so.
So we do that already.
Okay.
It wouldn't be reflected in this cost, it'd be sort of embedded in Mr. Hardesty's budget. These are generally would be scenarios where parents don't want to take us up on that option. And again, Dr. Malvo, this could be, like what's the furthest we've ever had a homeless child?
Prince George's County, we currently have them in Lansdowne and Baltimore County.
So when a student qualifies as homeless under the McKinney-Vento Act, and they declare they still want to attend a Carroll County school, it's our duty to get them there. So the alternative way this typically works, and Mike's probably going to cringe as I try to explain this, we link up with other school systems and sometimes other states, and we say, if you could get a bus to the county line, we can meet you there with a bus. And then sometimes because of the time involved, there's a younger student on a high school bus to start, and then we take them to a high school and then put them on a shuttle bus to run them to the next place in the line. And then there just becomes a point where you say, is that the best thing for that student to be on a bus that long twice a day just to get there? This is a much more efficient alternative to make that happen. But it is an additional cost to the operating budget to make those things happen. Do you have anything you want to add?
The other thing that makes this difficult is there's no guarantee for work here. This is on an as-needed basis. It may last a year, it may last a month, it may last a week. And that's the reason, we did put this out to our contractors and let them know that they would be free to bid on this RFP if they wished. But that's the problem. They would have to acquire a vehicle, a driver, with no guarantee of work. So, we're hopeful that a lot of these students will transition back to a school bus, or the need will no longer be there. But currently, we do have 9 students going to non-public schools primarily.
Yeah, so this is a time and materials contract. It's not a time and materials contract. It's just a flat-out award and bid.
It's a bid based on per mile per hour, basically.
Per mile per hour, okay.
Yes.
Yes, Jasmina.
I was just curious, are we mandated as a county to kind of provide transportation for those homeless students? Like, why can't they just attend a school in Prince George's County? I'm sorry if I'm being inconsiderate.
No,
I'm just
not
curious.
at all. We are, by federal law, mandated to do so, as well as state law. They could opt to do that if they chose to. If the family said it's in my student's best interest to change to a different school, they have that choice. But if the family or the student says, I want to continue in my assigned home school in Carroll County or whichever county, then we're obligated to provide that transportation. And that's been the case for many, many years now under law.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wonder from a historic perspective, we typically carve out about $500,000 every year for this.
Yeah, I mean, we're paying it out of Mike's budget presently. How much has it graduated, or is it always?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the explanation. Yeah.
Well, we started out with about 5 students, and now we're up to 9.
9.
So most of the students are special needs that have historically, or not historically, but have given evidence that they do not function well on a school bus.
Right. Yeah, and again, I understand the federal requirements. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, colleagues?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had another question. So I'm not trying to get all personal here, but homeless students, right? Do they, for example, say they stay at a homeless shelter in Prince George's County, right? Would we be able to almost, I don't want to say transfer, but kind of coordinate something with more local homeless shelters, kind of bring them a little closer? Because I know there's definitely closer alternatives than Prince George's County.
Sure. Whenever a student's identified as homeless, there's a best interest determination meeting. And during that meeting, all of those types of things are discussed. Time on the bus, the temporary nature of the homelessness, the consistency to maintain. So that's an element of that process where those decisions are made. And really, at the end of the day, it's called a best interest meeting because the intent is what is in the best interest of the student. So those factors are considered.
Any other questions, colleagues? Okay, I call the question. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Next on our agenda, may I have a motion for the approval of personnel appointments?
So move.
Moved by Dr. Malvo, second by Dr. Dorsey. All those in, actually, no, Dr. McCabe, turn it over to you.
I have two recommendations for appointment this evening. These are acting appointments this year while Ms. Neflin needs time away. Aaron Robinson, Assistant Principal at Westminster High to Acting Principal, Westminster High. And Sarah Jarbo, Spanish Teacher, Westminster High to Acting Assistant Principal, Westminster High.
Any questions or comments?
I just want to say these are incredible recommendations.
Thank you. And again, congratulations to Sarah Jarbo, one of our Light of Carroll Award winners this year. Hearing her name again today. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to approve personnel action items?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia. Second by Ms. Zimmer. Dr. McCabe.
For the monthly personnel action items, there is one new hire and one release from contract.
Questions or comments, colleagues? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, may I have a motion to approve the National School Boards Association dues for fiscal year 2026-2027?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Battaglia. Second by Dr. Dorsey. Dr. McCabe.
This is for the annual dues for the National School Boards Association, to which the Maryland Boards of Education, or MABE, is a state affiliate.
Questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, for Section 7, discussion. Does anybody have any items they want to discuss? Okay. Well, I will let the public know that our next meeting will be at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, May 13th. We're going to go back to our second Wednesday in May. Board meeting with public participation in the boardroom at 125 North Court Street in Westminster.
Mr. Whistler, real quick, I'm really sorry. I was just made aware, we all just got an email while we had our meeting that
Sure,
the
no worries.
Mother's Day big country breakfast will be at the Career and Technology Center on May 2nd. It benefits the Skill USA, so great way to celebrate Mother's Day. And of course, support the Career and Technology Center. It's $15 for adults, $10 for students, $5 for ages 6 to 12, and free for 5 and under. So make sure the public knows
Thank you. Yeah, and again, a reminder, May 3rd, I believe, is the Veterans Appreciation Day at the Carroll County Farm Museum. So I hope people get out there. And with that, is there any other comments? May I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Dr. Dorsey. Second by Ms. Zimmer. All those in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day and be safe.